Hi, my name is Lelani OConnell, and today I'll be discussing the current state of the United States healthcare system with respect to the Iron Triangle. The Iron Triangle consists of three variables that define the metrics of successful healthcare. We will look at number one, how the combination of cost and quality of care define overall value of care, how cost and access to care impact healthcare equity, and how access and quality can influence an overall population health. I will describe how these variables affect the state of United States healthcare by answering three different questions. How is the value of healthcare in the United States diminished or amplified by the overall cost and quality of care? Number two, is equity of care currently maintained, or are Americans facing cost as well as access discrepancies? And number three, how does the United States population health fare among other nations? And are Americans receiving the same quality of and access to care as citizens from other countries? We'll start with number one. How is the value of healthcare in the United States diminished or amplified by overall cost and quality of care? Well, we often define value of a good or a service by its cost efficiency, i.e., the common phrase bang for the buck, meaning how much of something or how good of quality of something are we receiving for the price that we're paying. As we will look at a little bit later, other countries' citizens are living longer and healthier lives than US citizens, so surely they must be spending more. Here, we see a comparison of the healthcare spending per person in 6 industrialized countries. In 2000, the United States spent $4,791 on healthcare per person, which was significantly more than industrialized nation counterparts. That number grew by 77.6% in 2011 when the US spent $8,508 per person on healthcare, which ended up being 2.64 times more than Japan and 2.5 times more than the UK. So we know that the US is spending a significant portion of its GDP on healthcare for citizens. Therefore, we might expect that spending such vast resources would elicit greater quality of care than other industrialized nations. So let's take another look. When we assess quality of care, we often look at four different factors. We assess timely and effective care, safe care, coordinated care, and patient-centered care. All four of these factors work together to define the quality of care. The United States ranked in the middle of these 11 countries shown here, scoring number 3, 7, 6, and 4, respectively. And overall, they scored number 5 on quality of care. So based on the amount of money that the United States is spending on healthcare per person and the quality of care that the citizens are receiving, we can safely say that the US is not getting its biggest bang for its very, very big buck. The value is not there. So on the same question, and breaking it down by race, the health insurance, we see that in 2015, according to the CDC, about 20% of Hispanics and more than 10% of African Americans lacked health insurance compared to about 6% of whites. Over here on the right side in this graph about percentage of persons of all ages who have a usual place to go for medical care by race, we see that about 90% of whites said they had a usual place to go to receive medical care, and where about 81% of Hispanics could only say the same. So here we already see a discrepancy in access to health care among race. Finally, we'll look at the amount of Americans who fail to receive any kind of medical care due to high costs. From 1997 to 2010, the U.S. saw consistent growth in percentage of Americans who failed to receive medical care due to high costs. And these values began to decrease consistently in 2015, likely due to the Affordable Care Act. When breaking this metric down again by race, we see that African Americans and Hispanics were more likely than whites to not seek medical care due to high costs. Ultimately, these high numbers of uninsured Americans means that citizens cannot access affordable health care, leading to these equity discrepancies in the entire system. Let's look at our third and final question. How does the United States population health fare among other nations, and are Americans receiving the same quality of and access to care as citizens from other nations? Well, we've already seen that as far as quality of care goes, the United States is at best average, or ranking at best average among 11 other industrialized nations. So let's compare now the United States overall population health to those of some of these first world countries. Here we see the average life expectancy of individuals from birth broken down into male and female. Japan has the longest life expectancy in both males and females, followed closely by France. And the United States trails behind in all other 5 nations. That being said, the United States has seen a great 12.6% increase in overall lifespan from 1960 to 2011, and it's shown an increase from 69.9 years to 78.7 years, meaning that there's been a great improvement, fortunately, in our healthcare since in the last 55 plus years. However, again, when you compare it to another nation like France, the U.S. trails behind in growth rate again, as the French saw an astounding growth rate of 16.9% in this exact time frame. Also, when assessing population health, we can evaluate some disease mortality rates. Let's look at ischemic heart disease as an example. In 1995, the United States was average as far as mortality rates go for ischemic heart disease. However, by 2013, they were second in highest death rates for this cardiac disease. This is an unfortunate increase. And it's just one of the many examples in which Americans fare worse than their international counterparts, due likely to these lower quality of care measures and lower access to care. So looking at it overall, what is the current state of the United States healthcare system? Well, we're not doing so well. Ultimately, the overall population health of the United States, again, fares less well than other industrialized nations due to the low access of care, lower quality of care, and very, very high cost of care issues. And unfortunately, with administration shifts, it's impossible to know where this broken system will go in the future.